Good morning, everybody. It's Jeff Goldberg for the Sales Pro Network. I am a sales and sales management coach, and I founded the Sales Pro Network to mostly help you increase your sales, help you make more money, close more business, shorten your sales cycle, and overall just be a happier camper when it comes to selling. And I'm so glad that time has marched on and our guest has just arrived because I was getting pretty damn nervous that I was going to have to tap dance for the next hour. So I founded the Sales Pro Network to help you earn more money in sales and elevate the profession of sales itself. And every Friday at 10 a.m. Eastern, we either do a live training or a live interview with somebody who can add value to the profession of sales. And I met this gentleman just a few weeks ago, but was so impressed that I said, we got to have him on right away. And I think you're really going to enjoy it. Please welcome our guest today, Lucas Barra. Good morning, Lucas.
Good morning, Jeff. Thanks for having me. Pleasure to be here.
Yeah, you had me a little nervous there, my friend. I saw the clock ticking and I said, "Uh-oh, am I getting stood up?" And I'm glad to see you. I know it's early. You're in California, right?
Yeah, I'm in California.
Got it. So, before we go into questions, can you just tell us a little bit about your background? You know, what brought you up to the point where you are being a sales coach?
Yeah, well, so I was a coach all of my life. I just didn't realize it until about, really this year. And prior to starting my coaching business, I worked in sales for an executive coaching company that put together these amazing CEO and business owner mastermind groups. And that was what inspired me to start this business. I started in business development and doing a lot of cold calling. And I was a part of 3,000 plus closed sales when I was there. And I talked to so many CEOs and business owners who couldn't make what we did. The company, the threshold to be in these groups was $1 million in annual revenue. And Jeff, as you may know, and a lot of people know, 85% of businesses don't even make it to $1 million in annual revenue. And so I heard this a lot of times. And then one day it literally it crushed me. It just crushed me one day. And I finally said, like a lot of things in sales, you get people to take action. You say, enough is enough. I got to do something like this about this. And I decided with my experience that there are a lot of people out there who could use more personal coaching. And so I started coaching people on the side and using some of the things that I had learned through just kind of like what I did naturally and Landmark and the company that I was at, and I used that. And I had some success with some clients that I work with for free. I started charging very minimal, and then I just continued building up, and eventually I just got to a point where it's okay, I gotta quit. I gotta just go do this thing, and eventually I left, and that was that. And I've been running the business now for 5 years, about coming up on my 5-year anniversary. So I'm really excited about where the business is going right now.
Yes, and if anybody goes to your website, they'll see some awesome testimonials from some of your way beyond satisfied clients. And good morning to Keith Ginsburg. Good to see you, my friend. Good morning, Fran Cole-Hebler down in Texas. If you are watching us live, please say hello. And if you have not connected your Facebook to StreamYard, please make sure you put your name in there. And if you're watching us on the replay later on, please be sure to say replay so that we know that you were here. If you have any questions for Lucas during this hour, please put them into the comments because I'm sure he'd be happy to answer them. But Lucas, you just mentioned something, Landmark. Are you talking about the Landmark Forum?
Yeah. So that was like, go ahead.
I was going to say, I was with those guys for 10 years. So could you please explain to everybody what that is and how it affected your life and how it affects your sales and your coaching business?
Oh man, explaining Landmark in a nutshell. Yeah. So it's basically, you know what I mean, Jeff. It's where you can really go to unravel a lot of the beliefs that you have about yourself. And you do it with a bunch of other people over the course of a weekend, and there's somebody who leads the forum, and they give you principles for living your life, and really like across the board. And that was, I started realizing I just had this, like, I started getting up in the middle of the forum and talking because I was pretty shy when I went in there, and I'm not really a shy person per se, but it just was a completely different environment. And so I started getting up there and talking and like actually coaching people during the meetings. So that was when the light bulb started to happen. And I literally came back from Landmark and I started coaching people who are older than it just sort of started happening. I started working with my mom. I started working with like some of the people that I was working with, and like they were crying, and like I was having conversations with them about like what was going on in their life. Like it just sort of like a landmark sort of, I finally got the permission to do that because I really got to open up about a lot of the things that I had been holding me back. And that's the nice thing about it, is you get to get up in front of a bunch of people and talk about what you've been through, and you hear other people's stories, so you can really start to release a lot of the stuff that you've been stuffing down, which is a great personal development experience.
Yeah. I could go on and on for the next hour just about Landmark. One of the amazing things for me was always, you're in a room with 300 people, and everyone you listen to, you go, holy crap, my life's not actually that bad. Look at what that guy's going through. Just incredible drama. Good morning, by the way, to Steve Kent. Brian Dunphy, good to see you. My friend Mitch Tobel, the marketing guy. Glad to have you here today. Yeah, so for those of you who are unfamiliar, the Landmark Forum, its predecessor was called EST, Earhart Seminar Training, and it was founded by a guy named Werner Earhart. I won't go into his background, but it was a very rigorous personal development program that over the years developed into something slightly more gentle, still very rigorous, the Landmark Forum. But it's a 3-day event where you can absolutely change the quality of your life in an instant. And it's really a conversation about what it is to be a human being. And the people who lead it are magnificent human beings and amazingly well trained to work with a wide variety of people and issues in a way that just blew me away every single time. Lucas, I actually managed seminars for them for 10 years. I was the guy sitting in the back of the room in the director's chair, passing notes up to the seminar. I love it. My life is 180 degrees different after I did the 6-day advanced course, which at that time was 6 days, was upstate New York. You have to go away, and there was all kinds of crazy stuff. But let's move on. And this kind of changes the conversation a bit, but you have a belief that people have an ability to be extraordinary. Do you think that's everyone, and how can they do that?
Yeah, I believe it's everybody if you choose to put the work in. The key word is there, it's choice, right? At the end of the day, and the reason that I believe that is because I just believe that, one, like I think I'm an example of this, where I didn't think I was extraordinary per se. I thought I was just, I sort of knew that I could do more, and then I realized I was extraordinary, and that was weird. And I think that is the same for a lot of people, to the fact that they have that sort of power just because of all the BS that is dumped on people from literally the moment you come out of the room. And everybody's got unique gifts. It just is a matter of putting yourself in a situation where you can really reveal that extraordinary nature that you have, and putting in the work, because it doesn't just like, it's not an affirmation. It just happens. You have to do both. That's like the difference.
Yeah, I love the words you chose to use, because it is about choice. So many people and so many salespeople fail to accept responsibility for their own success or failure, their own happiness, their own everything. And the truth for me is, we are each responsible. It's not anybody else. It's not some deity. It's not my mom or my dad or what they said or did or didn't do. It's really what are you going to choose to do right now? And then accepting that responsibility and moving forward. And I'm with you. I believe everybody does have the ability to be extraordinary if they simply claim it. And a large part of it is simply saying, I choose to be extraordinary. And then you said the most important part, which is you've got to take the action. There's a price to pay for everything. Success in life, success in sales and health. There's a price to pay. And if you're not willing to pay the price, you're going to end up whining all your life, going, why me? Why did somebody else do this or not do this for me? Good morning, Ben Gibbs. Good to see you, my friend. Can we talk a little bit, because I was fascinated by especially one of your videos, about the importance of setting expectations for prospects. How do you do that properly?
Yeah, well, it starts with like you, the individual, right? Because you got to have standards for yourself and like the way that you live your life. Because like, for example, right? Like one of my standards is that I work out 6 days a week. I finish what I start. I keep my commitments no matter what. I let go of what I can't control to the universe. So like I have these little ways of like my life and looking at things that make the difference. Because like if I can't keep my expectations or standards for myself, then how am I going to go set expectations with somebody else? Like I'm just going to be like rambling and not really be clear on what's important. And so the way that you can do that is just like start by asking yourself, like, what's one thing that you can do for yourself that you've been wanting to do, like an expectation that you want to hold yourself to, and then follow through on that. And then like the working out thing is it's a great place to start, because it's a foundational thing that we all need to do to be better in sales and in terms of running a business. And then once you do that, then it's what you can do is set expectations with people, as it becomes much more natural to start to say, hey, you are starting to value yourself. Here's what I expect from you. I expect you to show up this specific way, and I expect you to go through a specific process that we're going to go through to ultimately show that, hey, we're a good fit to work together, right? Because if you don't have some sort of process that people go through, you're setting the bar very low. And the way that you can do that with your prospects is just from the jump, like just saying, hey, I'm going to ask you for questions. We're going to see if we're going to be a good fit. Telling them that they're not a good fit, telling them that you're looking for specific qualities in terms of like people who want to grow, people who are willing to go, for example, out of balance, not just staying, do they really want to change, right? And actually listening to that and staying true to that, right? Because it's easy, especially when you're not making sales. It's like, oh, I kind of want to change. You're like, oh, great. Like you get happy ears, and that can change into what really works. So the bottom line on expectations is it starts with just having questions like that you can use to start to set the standard and let people know that you're not going to work with everybody, and then with yourself too, because the more that's in alignment, it will flow through more naturally into your conversations because of what you do.
Yeah, I saw a video on TikTok just this morning, which I'm addicted to. It's a woman sitting on her porch, and which is obviously a kind of a rundown house, and there's a plant sitting there and it's dead. And her conversation is, yeah, I leave this dead plant sitting out on my porch so that when people get to my house, their expectations are lowered, and when they walk in, they're not disappointed. So yeah, if we set people up for we're not really that great, we can't really help you that much, then that's what they're going to believe. And if you let people know, hey, look, you can expect the best from me. You can expect me to be committed to whatever you're committed to. You can expect me to drive you and kick your ass when you need to. You've got to let people know who you are in the matter. You also talk about coaching your prospects through fear. What fears do you find most prospects have, and how can we help them get past those fears?
Yeah, well, it's one, fear of not being good enough. I mean, like that they're going to make the wrong decision, or like they're just not good enough as people. Another one is like what it says about them if they're spending money, and that there's certain things that they experience and needing others' validation. I mean, that's I want to talk to my wife. I want to talk to somebody else, because truly, like at the core, they don't trust themselves. And so the way that you coach somebody through that is you say, one, you always agree, right? And then you just start asking them about what is making them believe that, because for you to really understand what made them believe that, like maybe their parents always talk things through. Maybe they've always done that their entire life and they've never realized how much that's held them back. So getting in there with and just asking, hey, what made you believe that? And listening for a conversation around what an experience that they had, because it all starts with an experience that they had, and being able to turn that around and talk to them about, for example, well, what did you pick up from that specific experience? Because a lot of the time that will tee up what they've actually experienced. And most people, unless they've done something like Landmark or gone through some sort of training, they never get to talk about the things that they picked up upstairs. And then that starts to be able to have them start to coach themselves, because they start taking ownership of the conversation versus just like, let's just do the deal. Let's just do the deal. Let's just do the deal. Because the deal just starts to happen because they start revealing like what the real fear is, and then they go, oh yeah, like I'm the one I need to make the decision for me, not depend on somebody else.
Yeah, I think that you're 100% right there. I believe that in my coaching practice, and I coach both sales managers and VPs of sales as well as salespeople, I find that they have this belief that they're not good enough, and they have a fear of having straightforward conversations with people. And I
Yeah.
find that prospects typically their greatest fear, in my opinion, is of making a bad decision. The way brain science works is we're wired up to think negatively when we're making a buying decision. What if this goes wrong? What if I make a bad decision? How will it affect me, my family, my job? And as salespeople, we have to show empathy, an overused word, I know, but for a good reason. We really have to understand that they're not an idiot. They're not stupid for not making an immediate decision. It's actually quite natural when you especially get a large number. Like I think you coach a lot of people in the real estate world. When people are buying a home, that's the biggest investment they typically make. You're
Yeah.
spending these days 4, 5, 800,000, over $1 million for a home. It's a huge decision, and it's unrealistic for somebody to say, "Here's the price, make a decision." So we as salespeople really have to be empathetic and understand that each and every one of us, as well as them, are working on all the programming from when we were 6 years old. And our parents told us things like money doesn't grow on trees, and you're an idiot, and things like that, which really makes an imprint on our minds and affects everything we do. Um, you talked a little bit about working out, and I'd like to hear more about that. How do you think that working out affects a salesperson's ability to sell, and how a salesperson feels about themselves in general? How does that affect their ability to sell and earn more money?
Well, because in sales you have to push through and let go of so much rejection, right? And part of that, when you're working out, you're doing things that are hard. For you, like personally, it gets a lot of like what's already like that pre-programmed trash out of you. So you're already putting yourself in motion in a place where, because we all start from a place of negativity. Like, I don't do my morning routine, I'm 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 not, worthless is not a great word, but worthless is pretty close to true, because like I can't function without it, because it really helps me. And that's why the working out part of it is so important, because when I've set the tone for my day, once I've done something hard, I can go and make 50 sales calls and have 5 people say no to me and have it not be as big a deal. Because this morning when I wanted to quit during my workout, which I almost always do, it's like I just kept going anyways. And that's that mentality, right? That you carry that mentality over, and when you find a way to get it done, no matter what, you create that behavior, and then that shows up in your energy as a salesperson, because you show up and then you act because you kept the promise. The other part is you're able to keep a promise that you made to yourself, which makes that's important, because when you keep those promises, your confidence immediately goes up, and then you can start to stack that up, and it grows. And that's where you can take that and apply it to where you're making phone calls and continuing to not stop when you get tired, because you could get halfway through your goal, and then especially if you're self-employed, I mean, your self-doubt starts creeping in, your day starts going the other way, and you're just like, ugh, you're like dying. But like, and your emotions start messing with you. Like, it happens to me all the time, where I will be here and I'll be in a good place, and then boom, my head starts taking me out of commission. And you learn to just stay on. Working out teaches you to stay on track no matter what. And that's so key for closing, because when you start to get frustrated in a deal and you lose your discipline is when you lose the deal, because you get desperate. And working out teaches you to stick with it and be patient with the process, so you naturally take it all the way through the close, because that last like 5% of the workout is always the hardest, because you're so close to done. And then that's like the deal too. The last 5% can be the hardest. And when you have that habit of just like, I'm finishing it, it carries through to your attitude, because you're just working with them on, hey, how can we find a way to get this thing done? Hey, it's that solution oriented focus that you develop, which is crucial.
Yeah, especially in the face of things are tough. That last 5 minutes of work, like I do Peloton sometimes, and I watch the clock and it's like, oh, 5 more minutes. And that's the hardest 5 minutes for sure.
Right.
And I love what you said. When you commit to doing something and you do it, you're in integrity, and the universe just rewards you when you're in integrity. Highly successful people, in my observation, and I've been doing this a long time, they're willing to do what the normal person will not. That's all. It's not that they're necessarily smarter or more talented, and they could be, but it's not necessarily that that's the case. It's that they're willing to do the tough stuff that most human beings simply will not do. You also talk about self-limiting beliefs. What do you think is the limiting belief that salespeople and entrepreneurs perhaps have?
Yeah, well, the most common one is that they're not enough. I mean, that's the doozy. I mean, yeah, me too. Me too. I mean, there's it's just like part of how humans are wired, and it's, especially when you're doing something on your own and you are not having a lot of success, you can go in the toilet very quickly. I mean, it does not take very long, and that's the one that you see the most often.
Yeah. Imposter syndrome lives in my head all day long, every day, even though there's so much evidence that it's not true. It's like, I'm not good enough. Who am I to tell anybody else what to do? What kind of balls must I have to be able to say, yeah, pay me a bunch of money and I'm going to help you succeed? It happens every single day, that conversation. I say sales is 50% mind game and 50% skills. And with my coaching clients, it's always both. You got to work on both. What's your personal biggest limiting belief?
So, mine is that I am not going to be enough, and that I'm going to get left alone. Like, things aren't going to work out for me, and so that manifests itself in a lot of ways. Like, when I'm not on my game or I'm limiting myself, I'm like depending on other people, because I'm just like, I'm scared that. Because I started the business, right? And so you kind of think about, as you make through and grow through things, like, hey, am I just going to is it always going to be like this? Am I always going to be on my own? Especially if I've had some experience with relationships. So that didn't work out. So that in and of itself is like the biggest thing that I have to be conscientious of, is that the right people show up in my life, because that's my biggest limiting belief is, hey, the right people might not show up, especially when you're alone. And when you're doing great shit, like, you do spend a lot of time alone. I mean, even that just is the kind of part of the deal. Nobody does the early morning stuff. Like, you do a lot of that stuff on your own.
Maybe that's why I'm a solopreneur, because I've had some pretty piss poor relationships in the past too, as I think we all have. It forms who you are, and we make all our decisions based out of that. So
Right.
What do you do on the days when you just can't control your mind and you need to perform, like getting up and doing that workout, or going out and giving a presentation when you're not feeling it?
Yeah, I mean, so the workout thing is something else that I'll do. Like, if for example, I'm just having a horrible start to my day, I'll go to lunch, for example, just do like a quick 30-minute workout, and just literally right here, or I'll go for a quick run, just doing something that pauses things and gets me back in the right state. If I've already done that, I'll meditate. Like, I have specific meditations that I do. There's a calm meditation, which is awesome. There's an impermanence meditation I've done like 100 times. I do various meditations to kind of like get myself to a place where I can at least like figure out what's going on and just maintain. And then the other thing that I do is I create buffers for myself that help me to stay on track. So, for example, I have like a little Post-it, which I think, can I show that? Can I see that? Yeah, so you'll see there's a little Post-it there with, you can see the little like X's and O's.
Yep.
And like, for example, like winning my morning, right? And so like, for example, I know if I don't win my morning, or if I'm, for example, one of my buffers is I'll go like I visualize my car. So if I feel like crap, I'm still able to go, I like know that I did that. So it still is like a buffer for me. I scream in my car, and then I kind of picture what I want. And that helps me on those days when I really don't want to follow through. My mind is driving me nuts. Is I have these little habits that I've created that keep me on track no matter what. And that's why I call them buffers, is because they are meant to be like, okay, even if I'm doing really bad, I'm still, quote unquote, I'm still able to do these things and remind myself, hey, it's like takes one thing to get back on track. Because once you can start to do like, hey, it takes one thing to get back on track, then your mind, you can start to get your mind back into the motion of doing things and knowing that emotionally, just carrying yourself through. I mean, that's the other key component of that is when you start to get distracted, and when your mind starts distracting you, is literally just putting everything away and just focusing on doing like the next call, the next email, the next whatever, and doing that thing, and that's it. Because the emotions of like that come up, you can start to really filter them down, and you condition yourself to just keep going, because you start feeling it, and you kind of teach yourself. And that's where the working out part of this and the standards for what you do for yourself help you, because in those moments when you're just like, your like mind is starting to check out on you and want to go to happy hour, you're like, all right, I'm not listening to this right now. I'm still just gonna stick with it, and then you follow through.
Got it. Yeah, I'd like to throw in a couple of others. First of all, remembering past successes. We almost all of us have had tons of successes in the past, and when you take a moment and stop the negative, a little voice in your head that's you're not good enough and all that other stuff, and you go, oh, wait a minute, there was that time when I did X, and when this happened, and when I gave of myself. When you remember past successes, it reminds you of who you really are. Two would be to create a culture, whether you work alone or with somebody else, of celebrating all wins. CAW, C-A-W. Celebrate all wins. I don't care how small they are. Like, I'm on a weight loss journey right now to get back to my right size. I can't blame it on COVID. I just lost my commitment, really, to being at the right size for me. And I gained about 30 pounds. I'm down, I think, 15 or 16 in the last 5 weeks. And sometimes, you get on the scale and it's an ounce. You know what? Woohoo, baby, I lost an ounce. When it goes up, it's not so happy, but every little win should be celebrated. The third thing for me is music. I love music, as most people do. Create a playlist of pump up music that works for you. And that could be different for everybody. But I have a bunch of stuff that no matter what I'm listening to, if I put on that playlist, it's full of that, driving beat or songs that I just love. Like, for me, the greatest song ever recorded was the Beatles' I Saw Her Standing There. As soon as I hear Paul count out 1, 2, 3, 4, I'm like, I've got a smile on my face. And finally, and this is not a plug for you or for me as coaches, but have somebody you can call other than yourself who will listen to you and give you that push. My mentor in the speaking and training business, the best sales trainer I've ever seen. He's unbelievable on the stage, really knows the stuff. But he'll call me from various parts, and I'll get a call, and Jeff, it's Steve. I'm in Dubai. I need a dose of Jeff. Because we all, I believe this, and I don't know him personally, but Tony Robbins, to me, the greatest motivational speaker of all time. I got to believe that there are times when Tony goes, shit, I'm just not feeling it today. And even Tony Robbins has to get down sometimes. So we all need somebody else who can go, oh, do you remember who the hell you are, Lucas? Come on, man, get out there. You can do it. You got people who need you. So I think those 4 are important. And we've got a question. Keith Ginsburg would like to hear more about the meditations. Are they from podcasts?
So they're from YouTube, Keith. I see her from you. So they're YouTube. So you can look up the comment. So look up Calm Meditations, and then you'll see there's little 10-minute meditations. So there's one. There's an impermanence one. If you want, you can shoot me your info. I'll shoot you the email, the meditations if you can't find them. So there's an impermanence one. There's one on is it gratitude? There's a Bob Proctor abundance meditation that I literally did for a year straight during COVID. That really helped a lot. So I would highly recommend it. And then those are the ones I do. I typically rotate like 7 or 8. There's an acceptance meditation too. So just Google acceptance calm meditation on YouTube, and you'll find it. It's like 12 minutes, and it's magical.
That's great. I think you joined the Sales Pro Network last week. And if you have the time, if you go post maybe links to those in the Sales Pro Network, that'd be great. And what you're just talking about, and we were also talking earlier, brings to mind Marianne Williamson's course in miracles.
Yeah.
I have this quote right here, and I know it's not it may not be pleasant to see me straight ahead, but my view either. But I'm just going to read this briefly because I stare at it every day, and it says, "Our greatest fear is not that we're inadequate, but that we're powerful beyond measure." And it's our light, not our darkness, that frightens us. We ask ourselves, who am I to be brilliant, gorgeous, handsome, talented, and fabulous? Actually, who are you not to be? You're a child of God. Your playing small does not serve the world. There's nothing enlightened about shrinking so that other people around you won't feel insecure. We're born to make manifest the glory of God within us. It is not just in some, it is in everyone. And as we let our own light shine, we consciously give other people permission to do the same. As we are liberated from our fear, our presence automatically liberates others. I can't tell you how many times I've shown a video of that at the end of a webinar or a seminar or a workshop. Who are we not to shine? It's kind of like my feeling about if you're good at what you do, and I don't care what you're selling, if you're a sales coach or you're selling real or whatever it is, I say you owe it to your prospects to reach out to them and talk to them. You're holding yourself back from prospecting and putting the word out about what you do is actually not serving you or the world. You owe it to people to help them as much as you possibly can. And when we play small, we're not serving our true purpose in life, which is, as far as I'm concerned, have a great time, don't hurt anybody else, and enjoy what you've been given. Because I personally don't know what comes after this. We may be, worm meat, and maybe our consciousness goes someplace else and comes back. I don't know, but I'm into making the most that I possibly can of right now. I want to move on to another subject. You talk about it's important for people to learn how to get coaching on how to coach themselves. How do people coach? By the way, I co-authored a book called How to Be Your Own Coach. So I'd love your take on how do people coach themselves?
Yeah, well, it starts with one, understanding who you are. I mean, as a person, right? I mean, what are your strengths and weaknesses, and understanding specifically weaknesses part is really important, because if you don't know where, for example, that like one of my weaknesses is sometimes I'll tell myself that I need to get more done than I actually do. So I get overly motivated, and I will go off the reservation and assign myself more than I need to do in a day. So I have to be, when I'm coaching myself, I have to be aware of the fact that, like, hey, if I'm already feeling overly motivated, I need to be like, all right, let's tone it down a little bit. Let's make sure that I can like actually still do this, right? And that's the important thing. It's kind of knowing thyself is important. And then the other part of it is getting somebody who can help you to start to learn how to coach you, because a lot of us, like, I didn't know how to just like coach me. I had to learn some of the different intricacies and blind spots that I had, because there are certain things I naturally would coach myself on, but I would miss, and I need somebody to say, hey, here are these things that you do well. Here are the things that you don't do well outside of your own perspective. So I could say, okay, how do I change that? That's two. And then three is just pick like one thing. And we'll go back to the working out example, is go pick that and start to see how you talk to yourself through that experience, because that's exactly how you're going to coach yourself. So if you find yourself, you're saying things that aren't helpful to you throughout the entire workout, start paying attention to that and changing that dialogue, because that's a way that you can start to actually notice what you're doing and starting to practice coaching yourself, because you're in a situation where you have to, because it's like when your brain's going, this sucks, I don't want to do this, it's not this, I don't want to continue. At some point, if you're going to make it through, you got to start going, you can do this, you can make it happen. And so you put yourself in a situation where you have to start practicing, and you start to learn, if you want to get through the situation, how to actually do that.
Yeah. It's that little voice in our heads that's constantly speaking to us. And by the way, if you guys don't know which little voice Lucas and I are talking about, it's the little voice that just said, what little voice is Jeff talking about? It's constantly chattering to us. And
Right.
it's often negative, because of things that we've heard or learned or people have said to us, you're an idiot, you're fat, you're unsuccessful, whatever it is. And my coaching for people is always, look, when you catch yourself, when you're able to have the self-realization that that's going on, it's not time to beat yourself up. It's time to go, oh, wait a minute. That's not serving me. And maybe I did overeat today, but I'm not fat. Or maybe I made a mistake, but I'm not stupid. And you gently correct yourself. And you can actually change your inner voice. It runs us all day long, every day. I want to move to prospecting because I always check out people's websites looking for, what are some of the topics that they speak about or feel passionate about. And there was something that really jumped out at me on yours. Call reluctance is a huge thing for so many salespeople. And I'm going to say that I think this goes against what many people think today, but cold calling is still a highly effective method for booking appointments. In fact, I still think it's the most cost-effective and time-efficient way to fill up your calendar with appointments if you don't have enough right now. Now, before I go on, let me say, I'd rather live in my car than have to pick up the phone and cold call again, which is why I've worked very hard. Well, I do it once a month just to make sure that what I'm teaching is still working for people. But other than that, I hate it. And I've worked very hard to develop other methods so that I don't have to cold call. But for those who do have to cold call, Lucas, how can they get past that call reluctance, that fear of picking up the phone?
Yeah, well, it starts with the fact that you're not going to like it. I mean, I think that's I think that's the first acknowledgement, is just saying like, hey, like, look, like you're not gonna like it to start. And the more that you can be like, hey, I'm not going to like it and have fun with that, the easier it gets to actually start picking up the phone. And the more that, for example, making it a game to like get a no from somebody is very, very helpful to, like, for example, for me, like my goal is like, let me get a no before I start my day. Because if I start my day with a no, like I always feel better starting my day with a no, because then I'm like, all right, like that's out of the way. Like I'm good. If I get like 2 or 3 no's, I'm like, all right, I'm good. Right. Because naturally there's the reluctance is there. And I always make the hardest call first. Like I make one of my hardest calls first. I do not want to make. And once I've done that, it starts to kind of get me going. And the other thing that I do that helps with call reluctance is just telling myself that that's where the good stuff is. Like that's where, because I know that other people are not doing that. And it's always proven true. Like there's people in high up places I talk to over and over and over and over again. And the only reason one of the reasons I've gotten the job is because I've just picked up the phone. And so the other part of it is like you said, is it still works. Like that's the other thing that when I start to get reluctance and say, hey, this doesn't work, I always remind myself of all the other times that it has worked, and it helps to reinforce it. And then I mean, for me, I have accountability. Like I have to make sure that if I don't follow through on a certain amount of calls, like I'm accountable for that. So I end up paying money to my coach if I don't follow through. So when you have leverage on yourself, it makes it a lot less easier to talk yourself out of it, because you just do it. And then the other thing that helps with reluctance is just continuing to do those other hard things. Because when you do the other hard things, like the working out, it makes it much easier. Like at the end of the day, you're like, it's not that bad. Like you're picking up a phone, and they may say no, they may not, and it may not be the greatest thing of all. You may feel like crap when you get the no, but like you got the no, right? It's like what you said with your ounce. It's like the worst. One thing I always found, especially when I started doing prospecting, was I expected myself to sound better. And the more that I was like I had like an aha moment when I had a call with the CEO who ran like a $10 million company. And I literally thought I sounded like horrible. I was so nervous. I was like, I couldn't even keep myself together. And he wanted to have another call with me. And I was like,
really?
I was like, really? So the other part of it is you never sound as bad as you think. Even if you're reluctant, the thing that you don't realize is we're always worse in our heads than we actually are when we go on the phone. Because guess what? The other person's in their head too. They're not thinking about you. They're thinking about, how do I sound? How do I come across? How do I, like, there's all the other stuff that they're dealing with in that moment. So, that's the great thing about cold calling is you are not coming across like you think. And there's a lot more freedom that you can have that actually, and know that everybody feels like that. I'm going to make a call today that I'm not going to like. And this is what I do. And I'm still going to be nervous. Like, it's not going to, I'm not going to just not go to my phone. Like, if we did calls right now, you'd see me, I'd still be nervous until I'm in the flow of it. And it's just part of the deal.
You and I are supposed to be experts at what we do, but I have the same. It's the same thing for me every time. Every time I pick that up, it's like, oh Jesus, what if this guy says something, or what if this lady says something, and I don't know what to say, and I look like an idiot. I hate that. By the way, Fran Cole-Hebler agrees. Totally agree. Do the hardest one first. The other thing, a couple of things, but one of them is to realize that you probably don't sound as bad as you think you do. Although you may sound bad, you're usually not as bad as you think you do. And the other person, yes, they're judging you to a certain extent, but I did a bunch of trainings for Verizon Wireless in the Northeast, all across the Northeast. And I always forget this woman's title, but she was the head of the entire Northeast division of Verizon Wireless. And she would introduce me and the other trainer at every session. And she would always talk about, here's why I want you to listen to these two people today, because this is important. Prospecting by telephone is a great way to make appointments, and you're probably thinking that you're going to stink at it. Well, they're going to make you better, but here's what I want you to think about. Let's imagine you make a call, and it goes really, really poorly, and you're embarrassed, and it doesn't do you any good, and you now go out for lunch. And at lunch, you decide, oh, you know what? I should fill up my car with gas. And as you're filling your car with gas at the pump, somebody pulls up on the other side of the pump and starts pumping gas into their car too. And they're a friendly person. They go, hey, how you doing? You go, hey, how are you doing? They go, wait a minute. I recognize your voice. Aren't you the idiot who cold called me this morning? And everybody would laugh in the audience and go, that's not going to happen. And she would say, yeah, that's not going to happen. The worst that happens is you completely blow it and you get hung up on, or you hang up on somebody else and you make another call. We think it's worse than it is, but the truth is, it does take a certain amount of no's to get to a yes. I don't care how good you are. Look, you can't be a sales coach, neither can I, unless we're damn good at selling. Otherwise, we're complete frauds. But as good as we are, nobody closes everything. I close less than 50% of the people I first meet with. People have an unrealistic expectation of what they can and should do. So I think it's useful to realize the reality, which is nobody gets them all. But it is, to a certain extent, it's a mental game and a skills game, but it is also a numbers game. By dialing the phone enough times, you're going to speak to enough people, and some of those people are going to say yes. They're going to be happy to hear from you. By the way, I don't know about your experience, but I hear this from a lot of salespeople right now and for the last year. Oh, no, you can't reach anybody because nobody's in the office. That's a crock of crap. Every company by now is forwarding calls to people's homes. And here's my personal experience. People are actually happy to hear from you because they haven't been working in an office environment where they get to talk to a lot of people. And while everybody's busy and have stuff to do, they are, I find, more receptive in the last year than they were previously because they're not used to getting it. Final thing before we move on is, here's how I want every cold call to go, which is why I don't like making cold calls. I want them to go like this. I was calling you to tell you my services. Hi, Lucas. This is Jeff Goldberg from Jeff Goldberg and Associates. And you go, stop right there. I've heard about you. I know you're so damn good that you're going to get the appointment. And once you get out here, you're going to close me. So why don't I save us both some time and just send you a check right now? But they don't go like that, do they, Lucas? Let's move on. Are there other methods that you're recommending to your clients right now for generating a steady stream of prospects besides cold calling?
Referrals. I mean, that's a great way to go, is asking for a referral. I mean, who do you know that's got a similar sort of situation that I helped you with? LinkedIn's great. I mean, sending people LinkedIn messages, personalized LinkedIn messages is awesome. Getting yourself in situations where you can be, the expert, right? Like an interview like this, or interviews with other people, being in situations where you can be seen, because once you do that, it's a lot easier for people to come to you as a subject matter expert. And you may be saying, well, I'm not a coach, or I'm not a business owner. Well, guess what? You still have some expertise, pal, because you are still a thought leader. You are still somebody who like you sharing articles on LinkedIn. Your prospects will read that, and they will go, and they will take your call. Like I used to write a lot of articles. I don't as much anymore. People would read my articles and take calls with me and say, hey, I read what you put. This is great. I want to talk with you more about this. And that was a good way to generate business. So I did that. And then now, like, things where I live too, I'm in San Diego, things are starting to open up a little, kind of, sort of. They're opening up a little bit more. So I'm recommending that people go out and do lunches. Like I got a lunch with somebody just because I asked them to go to lunch because of the time that we're in right now. I normally never would have gotten to lunch with, just because we're all desperate for like I felt like asking people for lunch, which was like weird. Like I normally am like, no, I'm gonna do my calls, I'm gonna do my coaching, and now I'm like, I want to go to lunch. I want to see people. So the other thing I'm recommending clients is just like ask for human interactions. Go to a game with somebody. Go because now it's like that bonding experience is another way that you can really get close with people, and that's going to end up resulting in sales.
Yeah, I have to admit, I am concerned about the direction the country is going in with this Delta variant. I think we're getting worse rather than better. But in the last 2 nights, I've gone to a concert for the first time in a year and a half. It was unbelievable sitting. It was Hall & Oates, an oldies concert. It was nice. Great. I don't know how many people Jones Beach Theater holds, but it was packed. It was just great. And last night I went to a comedy club and saw a bunch of great comedians, 250 other people. I am a little concerned, but that personal interaction is so missing. People are dying for it. And if we just reach out and give them the opportunity, it's a great way to touch people and to either get referrals or business. And you also talk about turning networking connections into closed business. Can you expand on that a little bit?
Yeah, sure. So for example, when you go meet with somebody, you're focusing on building the relationship, right? So in the example, when you go to lunch with somebody, you can find out, for example, outside of just using you and your services, who else do they need an introduction to? Because when you can become a facilitator for other people, like they know you as like Jerry Maguire, the person who they can come to you for anything. It makes it much more effective, because then when you call, people will pick up the phone because they know you got something for them. So that's one of the ways that when you're at lunch with somebody, it's not about your pitch, it's about them and where they're at, and you're focused on connecting with them and really listening to their situation. Because when you can listen, like we sat down for lunch, right? I'm almost to the point where I'm not talking about me intentionally. So where I can pick up on what you've really got going on, and that allows me to connect with you. And then if it makes sense, turn it into a sales opportunity. If not, I can turn it into, hey, who do I know in my phone book that I can connect you with, or who can I look for that I can connect with? Because I'm very big on that's how you get a lot of great things happening. If you help other people, you will be taken care of. And you put yourself in situations where you can, for example, go to a place where you're going to be around people who will reciprocate, or will bring that back to you. Then that just it's a multiplier effect. And even now, if like we go back into some sort of situation where we're all in our apartments or homes again, it's getting in a group and being a scenario with other people allows you that opportunity to connect, which makes all the difference in the world.
Yeah. I've been in the same networking group for 16 years. About 50% of my business comes from being in that group. And like all groups, we do our brief commercials and there's stuff to talk about. We always do thank yous and stuff like that. And I can't tell you how many times I've been thanked for this one simple thing. And it's my rule when I do, in our group, we call them opportunity calls, or they're one-on-ones, when you get together with somebody and get to know each other. My rule is simply, I'm going to sit down with you and it's going to start like this. So Lucas, tell me about yourself and how can I best help you? I can't tell you how many people have said, Jeff asked me, how can he help me? And that really just relaxed me. And that's not a gimmick for me. I truly do want to know how I can help people because that's the purpose of networking. You can always smell it when somebody walks into a group, whether it's on Zoom or in face-to-face, and they end their brief commercial with, and I'd love to do business with all of you. They just don't get networking. It's not about selling to the members of the group. It's about turning them into your extended sales force because they know you, like you, and trust you, and they want to help you, and they actively seek out, well, I'll take back actively, but they listen for opportunities. I can't say that I'm looking at in every interaction for how can I help all the people in my networking group, but you can bet when somebody says, yeah, I'm not getting enough leads. Oh, I know a great marketing guy. Oh, well, I'm having a problem with employees. I know a great employment attorney. I happen to know a bunch of really amazing people, and I'm sure you do too. And it's always that, how can I help you rather than what can you do for me? I believe that prospects, like people that you're networking with, prospects can smell commission breath on you. They smell need and greed like dogs smell fear. And our come from truly has to be, how can I serve you? I say if in sales, if we're not coming from a place of service, we're not going to be very successful. I always do this. I always have 75 questions. We're quickly running out of time. I know you run sales masterminds. Can you tell us a little bit about that and why you believe they're so useful?
Yeah, because there's nothing like being able to go to a group of people who outside of coaching and having a facilitated conversation, because you may hear something from somebody that you never thought of. Like my specific group is focused on breaking through limiting beliefs with sales and your life. And so when you can actually go and let your guard down about what's actually going on, you can go in that environment and do that, and then go back and still go back to your normal environment and leave that there. So you're not carrying that with you. So when you have a place that you know you can go and talk about what's going on consistently, there's this stability factor that you know you're not alone, and you have that place. It makes for a magical conversation. And I always crack up because when I would run these groups, when I do this, I will have clients in my groups who will say things that I have no idea that they're even going to say, or say like, oh yeah, Lucas told me this or that or the other. And they'll say something to somebody else that they would not tell me, because they'll say like, oh, I was not going to tell Lucas this, but since you said this, there's an environment where it's like they get off of like, oh, I'm being coached, or oh, I'm in this sort of environment, because they're with other people, and you can be vulnerable on a whole nother level. Because sometimes I find this too, like I would not say things to my coach because I was like, I really don't want to talk to you about this right now. I want to go detach this and talk to somebody else. And once you can do that, there's that expression, and that's where the magic happens of a mastermind. And then you may get one idea or an approach from somebody that you haven't thought of, and it literally will, change your business, because you can go, oh yeah, that was that one thing I was thinking about. I finally see how that can work. Or maybe somebody gives you a little courage, because we all need that from time to time. Hear it from somebody else other than like our coach. Hearing it from somebody else can say, who's just like at your level or a little bit above you, can make you go, oh yeah, they say it, I can do it. And that just makes things better.
Yeah, it's that giving yourself permission to be vulnerable. It's why I like groups like Vistage so much, where CEOs get together and can share that. Because when you're a CEO, and I'm sure you coach CEOs like I do too, you're alone. You can't go to your employees and say, hey, I'm having a hard time, or it's a bad day for me, because they need to see you a certain way. And you can certainly be somewhat vulnerable to them, but you can't go to your employees and complain all day long. But in front of a group of your peers, you can open up in a way that you can't with anybody else. And you're 1,000,000% right. When somebody speaks to somebody like yourself or myself, they will sometimes hold back because they don't want to be thought of as less than, but with their peers, they tend to open up more because they're experiencing the same things. They're going through the same stuff. I love that kind of thing. I know that you had foot surgery about a month ago. And
oh man,
what happened, and what did it teach you about progress?
Yeah, so I had a talar bunion. So normally your bone in your foot's supposed to be straight, and my bone was literally like out, like completely outside of my foot. And so they had to go in and saw it off to a point where down to size. And It taught me a lot because I got, for me, I get a lot. Like if you haven't heard me talk about working out, you can imagine like I had a lot of my certainty taken in a beneficial way taken away. Because when you have foot surgery, like I couldn't walk. Like it was a really challenging experience for me. And so I had to learn, I had a boot that they put me in the beginning of June because I had stitches and gauzes and all these things. And so what I had to learn to do was start to give myself credit for the littlest things possible, like walking to my car, which sounds nuts because like I never, prior to my surgery, I never would have been like, Lucas, give yourself credit for walking to your car. I would look at you and laugh because like I had run marathons and I had done all these other things. So it was like, why the hell would I do that? It makes no sense to me. But when you're in that place and you're really not feeling it, it's a great approach you can take to help you build your confidence. Because I started going, give myself credit for walking my car. Good job. I got through today. I was able to walk around my block today. Good job. And so as I started to do that, it helped me with getting through the process because I started to give myself credit for those little things I was able to do. And it started to build my confidence. And there was a lot of emotional stuff that was still kind of going on in my head. And the other thing that the foot surgery taught me, is still teaching me, is compassion for myself. Because there were a lot of things that were still in my head that I was not, I can't address them like I would normally do because I address them through like a long run. And I'll have like, a journal now where I will address what I'm feeling as another release. So it taught me to be a little bit more compassionate towards myself, because when I can't do what I'm normally used to doing, I still have to learn to love myself regardless of not being able to show up 100%. Because that was a limiting belief for me, for sure, is that I had to do all these things to show up and be validated. And I learned through the surgery that, hey, I didn't need to do all these things to be validated, and the journaling helped me with that. So it really was a blessing in disguise. And I mean, it's at the point right now where I'm very close to 100%. So I'm very grateful for that.
That's great. I wrote the words down because I felt they were so important. Compassion for yourself. We're often so hard on ourselves. We beat ourselves up way more than any other human being ever would. And it's self-defeating. And that it comes back to what we were talking about earlier, cost, celebrating all wins. A little win like being able to walk to the car. Who would ever think of that, except if you can't do it, when you're able to, it's huge. And it's just like in sales where the little yeses add up to a big yes. The little wins add up to a big win. It's that little every day getting up and slogging it out, even if you're not in the mood, even if you'd rather be at the beach or whatever it is. It's the person who actually does that stuff and accepts that you're not going to win every single time, but each little thing adds up. That's where the power comes from, I think.
Yeah, I wrote that on my hand this morning. Incremental progress adds up. Like I always write a little affirmation. So it's cool you said that.
I love it. I'm going to share my screen here. And could you tell people what you – whoops, I'm not doing it right. Hold on. There we go. Could you tell people what you offer and how they can reach you? I'm sharing my screen now. How they can reach you if they want to? Yeah.
So I offer one-to-one coaching. So I will talk to my clients anywhere from 30 to 45 minutes weekly over Zoom. And so we can talk about your unique situation. I'll help you to create a game plan for growing your business or just dealing with whatever is part of your experience right now. That's something I specialize in. It's not just about sales. It's about, I will have whatever conversation you need to have, we need to have to get you to a breakthrough. So that's part of my specialty. And I'll do that in a group setting too. Like the mastermind is something that I'm offering virtually right now. It's the third Saturday. So this next Saturday, I actually have a meeting coming up from 10 to 1. And so for anybody who's interested in checking the mastermind group, we can talk about that. And you can reach me. This is my direct number, 858-395-1703. And there's a link to my website and my calendar here on the slide. And we schedule time to talk and get to talk a little bit more about where you're at and what we can do and see if there's a fit. And simple as that.
Great. If you're able to, if you would go into the Sales Pro Network on Facebook and put that information in there too, in case anybody's looking to reach you, especially the link to your calendar, that would be great. Any final thoughts for today?
Yeah, my final thought for today would be to do something that you don't want to do today, because because tomorrow is Saturday and you will wake up a much happier person tomorrow, knowing that you did something that made you uncomfortable today. So go do it.
I just saw a picture of my coach skydiving. So I have a feeling that she did something that was uncomfortable for her. And having done that, I can tell you it's the second scariest thing that ever on the
Yeah,
face of the planet, as far as I'm
I
concerned.
agree with you on that. I did the same. It was so scary. Yeah, I'm with you.
For me, second scariest. The first is stand-up comedy, which I am doing on September 1st for the first time in 28 years. When you push yourself past those fears and you do it anyways, you come out the other side. Even if you don't do terrific, it's like, oh, such a feeling of power. Lucas, Barra, thank you so much for sharing your brilliance with us generously. I appreciate all your thoughts. And as I end these every week, please remember, guys, that sales is a game of making things happen. So get out there and make sales happen. Lucas, have a great weekend. Everybody have a great weekend. Speak with you soon.
Thanks, Jeff. It was great speaking with everybody. Have an awesome weekend.